Welcome back for another episode of Sunday SoulDay, fueling your mind, body, and soul with soulful conversations and life changing insights. What if the boundaries you struggle to set are the very key to your healing? I sit down with Pamela Byrd, certified boundaries coach, to explore the deep connection between boundaries, faith, and healing childhood trauma. With 25 years in corporate leadership and over a decade as a coach, consultant, and author, Pamela has dedicated her life to helping women release guilt, reclaim their voices, and live aligned, emotionally healthy lives. Let's welcome her to Sunday Soul Day. Well, welcome to Sunday Soul Day, Pamela.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. This is going to be interesting.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for responding. You guys, I actually put up a post, and this was the coolest thing to me because I don't always advertise, that I'm looking for guests. And something told me, like, let's just try, put it up there, see what happens. And the amount of people that responded and just incredible people like Pamela with incredible backgrounds, like, I feel so grateful. I also know that everything is energy. And so when you put the right energy out there, the right energy finds you. And that's exactly what happened. So I'm so grateful to have you on the show. And we're going to be talking all about boundaries, which has been something I had to learn over many years. So very excited to hear your point of view on this and talk about all the cool things that you're doing. So your work focuses very heavily on boundaries, especially for women, healing from childhood trauma and different wounds. Like, what inspired you to dedicate your career to this area?
It's interesting because when I started my coaching, I got certified in coaching back in 2007. And I was working in corporate America and my job downsized. And I started doing coaching with women, and I did it for women that were looking to reach a certain level within the next 5 years. And it was really a push to get them because my first question was, what did you want to be? What do you want to do? And they would tell me what they wanted to do. And I'd say, well, you know, this as a coach, well, what steps have you taken to get there? And usually the steps they'd taken were nothing compared to where they should be based on how long they've had that goal. And so while I was trying to get them to work to a certain goal within a 5 year period, I realized that the main thing that was stopping them from reaching their goals was their inability to set healthy boundaries. So I started focusing on, okay, what are the areas that people need to set boundaries in? But the big thing is, unless you have a goal, then it's going to be difficult to set the right boundaries. And it's going to be difficult to know where the boundaries are needed in order to reach that. So, what I do is help women understand that if you want something, you got to be able to set the boundaries along the way in order to get it. Otherwise, it's never going to happen. So that's how I started. And then in 2021, this is right around when COVID first hit, that my sister, I had a twin sister, and she took her life. And at that point, I started doing a lot of research, and I knew God was telling me there's some message that you need to get out there that women need to understand because my sister and I both experienced probably about 90% of the same type of traumas. But why is it that her outcome came out different than mine? And so I wanted to do the research on that. And I did that research and realized that a lot of times people who go through childhood trauma, and everyone's different based on neuroscience, based on their brains, everyone's different. So how come some people can survive and thrive in the midst of childhood traumas and some can't? And so when I did the research for my first book, called I Had a Twin Disrupting the Cycle of Childhood Traumas, I did the research with my sister. She had journals. She had recorded her therapy sessions with her therapist because I wanted to see if I could get some answers. And through her journals and through the doctor's recordings that I was able to listen to, I realized that there's a lot of things that women are going through that they haven't healed from that are impacting their lives today. So I start out with boundaries because everyone will tell you, oh, yeah, I need to set boundaries. Oh, I need to set boundaries. But then they don't realize what it takes in order to set the boundaries, especially if they have some unresolved childhood traumas issues. So that's how I got into doing what I'm doing today.
Thank you so much for taking me through that. And I'm so sorry about your sister.
Thank you. Yeah.
It's so true. Everyone handles their childhood trauma in different ways. and processes the things very differently. And I love that you focus in on boundaries because I think it is, and I've seen this, even before I started coaching within myself, like just not even giving yourself permission to set the boundary because it wasn't shown to you. So it wasn't modeled to you. What was modeled, I would say, like in schools and, sometimes in the home, it was always putting everybody before yourself.
Yep.
And so it's taught to us if you look at it, it's everywhere you go. It's like people are rarely talking about self-love, putting yourself first, filling your cup first, and then someone else's. And so it's a large part of my work too. Boundaries is a portion of it, but really understanding your childhood wounds so then you can heal them and serve from a place of wholeness rather than a fractional version of yourself. And so I love
That's
that you're
good.
focusing on boundaries. Like
Yeah.
how has faith and spirituality influenced your approach to boundary setting and healing?
I don't know where I would be without it. I did not grow up in a Christian environment at all, but I always knew God was with me. And in my times of just, despair, I knew he was there because there was a voice that was telling me I would be okay. Even though, like I said, going through that same trauma, I was like, and many times I didn't never contemplate it, but I thought about it, suicide. I thought about taking my life so many times, but then I thought that, what, there are a lot of people out here who would be hurt if I did that. And so I knew that I wasn't going to do it because there are too many people that need me. And God was telling me the whole time that no, it's okay. You're going to be okay. And I know that it's the things that I've gone through that he has equipped me to do what he needs me to do. So I am purposeful. I'm doing exactly what God wants me to do. And I have been put in the position that been in, the experiences that I've had so that I can be who he needs me to be to do what he needs me to do to move people to understand their childhood trauma and to heal from it and to understand that there's some entity out there that doesn't want them to fulfill that purpose that he's placed them here on this earth to do. And if I can help them to identify what that is and where they're missing the mark on dealing with their traumas, then I know that I've done what God asked me to do. So as long as because here's the deal, this is my thing. When you're going through trauma, when you're going through turmoil, as you become an adult, those experiences stay with you. And there's so many triggers that we experience that hold us hostage. And the hostage holder is the enemy, because as soon as the enemy know that you're going to do what God wants you to do, he's going to put something in your path to stop you from doing that. And so my purpose is to help women identify what those things are so they can look at them like for what they truly are. It's not the people that are doing it, it's your past experiences that are manifesting in a way that makes it feel like it's current. And it's not. So when you can identify it as soon as it comes out for what it truly is and who's doing this, then you can, I always say it's like having a V8. Then you're like, oh, okay, that's what that is. Okay, now I've got the strength and the courage that I need to thwart that and to pray about it and know that God is with me and he's going to carry me through, give me the strength and the courage I need to move on to do what he needs me to do.
Not amazing though that even as a child, not even growing up in a home that was particularly religious, that you still found your higher power, who you call God. I just find that so amazing. Even in my home, like my parents, we would sometimes go to church, but they weren't particularly like extremely religious by any means. But I always have had a relationship with God. Like I always, knew that there was something bigger than me, that was guiding me really, and really protecting me. Like I always felt protected, in every situation. Like, and it's amazing to me when I look back on my journey and I think about like how far I've come with my relationship with God, just having that inner knowing. And I think that is a part of the enemy that you're talking about. It's all the external things that we encounter that trigger us inside, right? And it's
Yeah.
because we haven't fully done the inner work. And so I actually talk about the inner mirror. And, your inner mirror needs to be cleaned off. When it's messy, dirty, and all the gunk is on there, it's so easy for you to get triggered, for you to get, angry at certain things or kind of step back from your purpose, because your inner mirror is still dirty. You have to clean that off so you can see better.
Yeah, I like that you said that. I love that analogy because I was just sitting here thinking, I just got this pair of glasses, right? As I took them off earlier. They're my first pair of prescription glasses, right? And I was thinking, as I looked at them, I said, oh, they're dirty. But when we put those on, like that mirror, we don't know that it's dirty. And just think about riding in the car. You don't know your glasses are dirty. You don't even know your windshield's dirty, but you're going to find a way to focus on what's on the other side of that dirt. And even if you have to look around, you're going to do that because what you're doing is you're ignoring the obvious. You're ignoring the pain that's there right in front of you because you're like, oh, I don't have time to deal with that. That's going to take too much. That's going to be too painful. But if you keep doing that, guess what? That window is going to get dirtier and dirtier. And if you don't clean it up, if you don't clean up those glasses, guess what? Your view of your life is going to be distorted, and it's not going to be a true picture of who you are as a child of God. And if you don't have that, most chances are you're going to lose because the enemy's going to have you right where he wants you, and he's going to be good, and you're going to be suffering. You're going to be in despair, and you're going to wonder why am I going through all these things? Because you haven't cleaned off your mirror.
So true. And
Yeah,
this
that was
word,
good.
thank you. It's something I wrote about in my first book that I wrote. When I talk about, just self-reflecting,
Yeah.
it's 10 steps to self-reflection, just like helping
Mm.
people kind of look at their inner mirror in a way to do it, very, very short ebook I wrote, but it's so important to do that because what happens is we get so comfortable, like you talk about, we don't clean off because we're too busy, we're too this, we're too that, or we make so many excuses and then we start believing the stories that we tell
Yep.
ourselves that we
Yep.
don't even take the time to do it. Then we get comfortable with it. We get comfortable with
Oh,
the dirt and the muck and all the, stuff on our mirror. So I love that that resonated with you.
yes, yes.
So you talk, I'm going to talk about boundaries a little bit for our audience, for people who aren't as comfortable yet with setting boundaries. Like, what are some misconceptions, like maybe some common misconceptions women have around boundaries, and how can they start kind of shifting their mindset?
The biggest misconception that women have about boundaries is that they're setting them for someone else,
Mhm. Good.
against someone else. And when we do that, we fear the aftermath. But when we're doing it for ourselves, we realize that our goal ultimately is for peace. So when we look to set a boundary to keep that calm in place, we believe that we're setting it for someone else. Like, for instance, if we don't like the way that someone talks to us, oftentimes, what we'll do instead of telling them not to talk to us a certain way, we'll just listen to it. And a lot of that comes from our past traumas that we were talked to a certain way and there wasn't a thing we could do about it. And so we think that if we say something that we're going to get in trouble, either we're going to get in trouble because it's all fear. Well, we don't set them against someone else because we're afraid that we're going to be abandoned. And if you've got a childhood trauma that's triggered, you've already been abandoned. So you definitely don't want to do that again. We're afraid that people will lash out at us, or people will not like us, or they'll get other people not to like us. The biggest thing women need to understand is that when you set a boundary, it's for you, for your peace, for your safety, and you're going to be happier as a result of that. And if you are so concerned about other people with your boundaries, then most chances are there's something within yourself that you haven't claimed as far as your authority and how wonderful you are as a human being. And if you had childhood trauma, it's no wonder. It's no wonder you wouldn't do that. But you got to get to the point where you, first of all, if you're afraid to set boundaries, and understand that it's for you and not them, then it's time to really take some introspective look, that self reflection, those 10 steps that you talked about, and consider the words that you speak to yourself. And most importantly, consider the words that you allow someone else to speak to you or about you, because that's a false narrative and you have to make sure you correct it. But if you believe the false narrative because you haven't done that work, then most chances are they will get away with that and you'll be the one that's left, in despair because of some trigger that you received thinking that you're supposed to be treated like that. We can believe the narrative that someone places on us that we haven't worked through, so we don't set the boundaries. But it's
Oh,
the work you need to do to make sure you understand how valuable you are. And once you can do that, then you setting those boundaries become easier. It's not easy, but it becomes easier. When we set boundaries, we just do them. We do them based on thought, not emotion. Then someone can say, okay, they'll accept it. And we're surprised. We're like, wow. I heard Oprah tell a story how she was a people pleaser. And finally, someone came to her and asking this gentleman was asking her to donate to a charity. And she said, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Because I already know what charities I'm donating to, and I just don't want to do it. So she said she finally got the courage and she said, no, I'm not going to be able to do that, with no explanation. And he said, okay, all right, I'll talk to you later. And then she was like, it was okay. Just try it. Try. And I always tell people, try a small one first. A small one can be, I want to go here for dinner and you don't want to go there for dinner. So, you know what? I don't have a taste for that. How about if we do this? But come up with an answer because you've thought through it rather than, I don't want to eat that food. And that person comes back and says, well, what do you want to eat? And you say, well, I don't know. Well, no, think about it. Okay, I don't want that food. I don't like it, but I do want some of this. So your boundary is, you know what? I really don't want to eat that. How about we eat this? Or how about we go this or this? And that way you're giving someone an option on what to do, but then you have the power because you're the one that set the boundary and you're the one that gave the option. Now the other person has no other choice but to choose one of the two that you said, and that way you're both happy because boundaries are about a win-win. They're not about stopping from someone doing something and preventing something from doing. They're about how can we come together and make this a win-win for both of us.
well, and in some cases, it's not always a win-win, right? And that's what you spoke to earlier, where it's like someone isn't ready to, you know, allow for that boundary to be put in place in your relationship. That's still a win for you, you know,
Right.
because now you know where that person stands, you know. And I
Absolutely.
love that you said that, you know, it's not for other people. And I think that's exactly what people get tripped up on when they set the boundary, is they're not doing it for themselves. But I think it's also they haven't even given themselves permission to set things for themselves. So
Right.
something they have to even get comfortable with. So I love that you say start with something small, you know, like, you
Yeah.
know, for me, it was like I started in a restaurant. Like I used to never send food back. Like I
Right.
wouldn't, you know, and even if it was the wrong order, you know, like I just wouldn't. But, you know, I was like, I don't want to not enjoy my meal, you know? So I'm like, I started advocating for myself. And that's really what I think a boundary is. It's getting comfortable advocating for yourself.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and but we for many years, especially when it's practice, we're not always able to advocate for ourselves. You know, we're not even taught to advocate. We didn't see it in our mothers, we didn't see it in our grandmothers, you know, we didn't see
Mm.
it in our neighbors, you know, so it wasn't something that was modeled to us over and over and over. So something I know for myself, I had to learn, you know, and I had to learn and just by doing them small, like you said, doing a small one and then eventually getting to larger boundaries where I could just be like Oprah and say no, you know,
Yeah.
like just like that, like no explanation, no, you know, and I think that's where people get tripped up because they think they owe people an explanation, like we're
Right.
well, I have to do this, I have to do that.
No,
It's like, no, you can
you
just say no.
don't.
No is a complete sentence.
Yes, it is. Period.
Good. Well, tell me this because I love that you said are small, but like, what are some practical tools and exercises you would recommend for women who are really struggling, like saying no or beginning to establish like clear, respectful boundaries with maybe like their partner at home or even at
Mhm.
work?
Mhm. I really believe that, first of all, understand that a boundary does not have to be set right away. There is no time limit. What do you call it? Statute of limitations on boundaries. You can set it whenever you feel you're comfortable setting it, as long as you realize that you're not comfortable with something that's happening to you or around you. And the best advice that I give people is to understand the difference between the emotional and the logical aspect of any situation that you're in. It's all about perspective. When someone has offended us, we typically want to react. And I want to say, based on something that you just said earlier, that we do it based on our mothers, our fathers, our grandparents. Usually the only thing we see is emotional outbursts because they've held it in so long, they have not set those boundaries that they end up blowing up. And then we think, well, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to get all upset. We're supposed to curse somebody out. We're supposed to stand our ground, but it's based on emotion. So, what I always tell my clients is journal. I'm a journaling practitioner and I teach people how to use different styles of journaling in order to heal and to set boundaries. So, the one thing I'll do, and I'll just give you my example of my home and with my husband, and it happens at work too, because I do some work with corporations on helping their employees to understand the excess baggage of other people. And, one of the things that's important to do is a particular style of journaling, and it's called dialogical journaling. And with dialogical journaling, what you do is you have a script. So whether it be at home, whether it be at the office, whether it be for your children, whoever it may, a business partner, if there's a situation that you're offended with or you don't like the way that it transpired, then what you want to do is use this style of journaling. And when I say you don't have to do it right away, it's because if someone offends you, you don't have to react. You don't have to react. Say, you know what? Duly noted. I'm going to step back and I'm going to journal about this because I want to make sure that when I come out and I'm ready to set that boundary, it's going to be one that's based on thought and emotion. And when you use this style of journaling, dialogical, it gives your head and your heart an opportunity to work together in concert. So let's say you have a script. If you ever see the movie script, on one column you see two names, the names of the people that are in the movie or whatever. Well, in this script one, you use the name of the person you're in conflict with and yourself. But you want to go really deep on this, you use the inner adult and the inner child because your inner adult is you as a grown up, your inner child is your emotion. So when you dialogue between the two, your adult will then allow you to work through those emotions on paper on the situation and allow you to come up with an answer or boundary that needs to be communicated so that you can then share that with the person, communicate with the person to hopefully get a win-win. But this way, you're not coming at someone immediately through reaction, and you're also given time to really think about it. Because they say if you get really upset, wait 24 hours before you respond. Well, in that 24 hours, dialogue journaling, so you can feel good about the way that you come up. And it gives you the courage and the confidence to have the conversation because then you got a pretty good idea how that person's going to respond to you. And then you know how to respond accordingly back to them. But it's all about response, it's not reactionary. And that's why you take your time to set a boundary.
So it's so good. Like, I love that you start with, just telling people that they get to set the time, like you get to, and also your boundaries can change. That's another thing. Like, you hold the power. So like if you allow someone to do something over and over, you can set a boundary at any moment, so I love that reminder for our audience. And then I've, not tried the dialogical journaling. I love that. I'm definitely going to incorporate that in my coaching. I have incorporated, inner child, inner teen, and then your adult, inner adult, but not in this way. So I love the scripting. Like, it's
Yes.
so good, like I actually do something where I do a release because I think
Mm-hmm.
that's another thing. A lot of times we hold on to that energy, like if someone upsets us and we, hang on to that negative energy, and then it's in us. And unless we do something to move that energy around, it's still there, and the body keeps the score to that, beautiful book. It
Yep.
keeps. So I actually do something where I do a big release first, but then I actually like the scripted journaling. I'm going to try that after, like I kind of like,
Yeah.
so I do something where I'll just write out all of my feelings, emotions without thinking about the words, and my
Yeah. Cathartic. You're
first
doing
words in
cathartic
there,
journaling.
cathartic, right?
Yeah.
I used to do it in an email form because I actually type really
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
And then I would hit send, but it would just come to me. So,
Yes. Oh, that's good. That's good.
so that's another thing I do. But one thing I do with my clients around boundaries, and this is, might be helpful to someone, is it's not always easy to start with our personal relationships.
Mm,
And so I
that's the
created these
hardest.
circles. Yeah. And so I created these circles, and your circle is like your, closest relationships. And then all the ones on the outer is where you actually start. So I'm like, start at the furthest circle, which is
Yes. That's
circle.
good.
And then, that's where you start. And then you work your way back, as you're learning to set boundaries for yourself. So
Very good.
that's
I
another
love
tip.
that.
Yeah. So, I'm amazed because I was looking at your books, your podcast. I mean, like you do so many things, like, which is incredible. But talk to us a little bit about like some of your books, that you have, and they're Christian based. I
Mhm.
love that they're faith-based. I can't talk today. Faith-based books. How has your, faith guided your coaching and your teachings?
Well, I just have a difficult time understanding how anybody can get through this life without understanding that higher being and also being able to trust that higher being and to build a relationship. I can't see it. And I also, because how God has gifted me, because we all have spiritual gifts, we all have spiritual gifts that give us the ability to do what he's purposed us to do. So I just know that he has made it possible for me to identify, like I said before, and a lot of people don't like to talk about, the enemy. They want to talk about God, they want to talk about the good, but then when they get down to misery, to being miserable, then they cry out, why, God, why? But I don't think they truly understand the war that we're in on this earth and who's in power in this earth. And God has equipped me to identify who that is and to help other people to get through it. So, what would my foundation be if I didn't have God? What would my foundation be? I would be helping women to set boundaries, but then it would be more of like based on anger. It
And
would
almost
be,
ego-based.
yeah, it would be. And boundaries are about love too. It's about loving ourselves. I like what you said about being an advocate for ourselves because we love ourselves. When I do dialogical, which is the book is called Inner Bonding by Margaret Paul. That's the foundation of my inner bonding work. Now she doesn't necessarily talk about journaling, and I kind of worked through that after reading that. But understanding, as you know, that the inner child, that connection is so important that has to heal before you can get the power and the courage and the confidence and the love for yourself that you need, because you got to understand that little girl's hurting, that little boy is hurting. And as long as that little girl, that little boy is hurting, then whatever manifests in your life is going to be a result of that hurt, because it's taking over. But once you become the adult to that little child, you let them know that they're safe, secure, and that's something they never felt when they were younger. Now they have you. It's your responsibility as the adult to make that little girl, that little boy feel safe so you two can work together to create the life that you really want to lead. And that adult is going to be the one to help you to set the boundaries. So God is just paramount in my life, and I just don't know what I would do without him. And I don't understand. Like, I work with women that are not, believers, they're not Christians. And we can only go so far. That's why I focus more on women who are believers, because they understand requirement for the openness, the vulnerability, the humility to be able to say, you know what, there's some work I got to do. And God's going to, and I'm not alone. God is going to help me to do this. I've got support. I've got a foundation that's going to build me. But if you don't have that foundation, then you're relying on yourself. And a lot of times you rely on yourself. It's only gotten you this far.
Well, and I also think like that's why so many people are at war with themselves, because they don't understand the magnitude, the protection, the love, that God provides, and I really do. Like, I mean, I've talked to so many people my entire career, and had the privilege to interview so many people and coach people throughout my career, that I see the people who are not believers, and it's not to shame anyone. This is not, the intent for myself or Pamela, but I do feel like, it's so important to believe in something larger than yourself, whatever you want to call that, but for us, we call ours God.
Absolutely.
There's one creator, but he's labeled a lot of different names,
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So that's my personal belief, but I always say, like, I believe that you have to have some belief system that's larger than yourself. Otherwise, you're relying on yourself only.
Right, right. And that's interesting because I was just on LinkedIn and I saw a coworker I used to work with like, I don't know, like 20 years ago. And we both were, well, no, it was in 2007 because that's the time that the job sold, the company sold, and I lost my job and I started doing my coaching, so got certified. But at the time we were at a what do you call it, a convention sales meeting, and we were both doing sales training, and they announced the first day that the company had been sold and we were going to be out of jobs. So, and I remember everyone, like, not everyone, not me, people were crying, and I was like, oh, okay, this is devastating, but can you just like wait a minute? But people cry because it's devastating. Well, I remember sitting out with the girl afterwards, my coworker, and she was an atheist. She's, confessed atheist, and she said, I don't know how to deal with this. You have something to fall back on. You have God. I don't.
Mhm.
I thought that was really, and you know what? To me, my response to her was nothing. There was nothing I could say because she had just admitted it. She said it, and the rest was for her to figure out.
No, absolutely. But that's exactly what I'm talking about. It's like in those moments, those low moments that you were talking about earlier, it's like that's when I see a lot of people turning to. But God is actually with us through everything,
Everything,
all the
good,
moments,
bad,
even
everything.
when and that's what's so beautiful. He gives us free will, right? To choose
Mhm,
or not choose. And, I believe that, when you invite him in, there is a level of openness,
mhm.
and in a level of like love in your heart space that, allows him to work through you. And that's really what I see it. I think we're all, like God's in all of us, even if
Yeah,
we're believers, like,
yeah,
so
yeah.
yes. Oh my gosh, we could talk all day about this. So
I know,
I
I
invite you
know.
to talk about that. But I wanted to share just some of your books with the audience, just if you wanted to share that as well.
Okay.
Talk a little bit about, some of your books. Yeah.
Okay. My first book, as I indicated when my sister took her life, was a book I called I Had a Twin, Disrupting the Cycle of Childhood Traumas. And I intentionally used the word disrupt because it didn't say, omit, eliminate, get rid of, because a lot of times by the time you read this book, damage has already been done if we can disrupt it. So, for instance, my sister and I dealt with the trauma in our lives. And because we didn't understand it, then I ended up repeating some of the same mistakes in my children. And the reason I wrote the book is not really to talk about my sister. I used some examples in there of her and the purpose of it, but the whole reason behind the book is to get people to really look at their traumas and to identify where those traumas have not are still manifesting in their lives today, so they can go get the help and the support that they need in order to do the work to heal. And the whole premise behind that book is to understand that when we don't do that, we have the residual effects of that trauma that's passed on to our children, our spouses, our loved ones, all over the place. And then what happens is we create what I call collateral damage. The collateral damage is the result. There's collateral damage, honestly, in my two children. I had a daughter and a son. They're what, 30, no, 40 and 36 right now. And the damage that's been done because I didn't do the work when they were little, that's the collateral damage. And so I did that book so people can recognize it before it gets late, even before they get married, so that they can see that these things need to be healed in order for you to be whole before you bring this into a relationship and have children and then pass that on to them and create that residual effect and the collateral damage that ensues as a result. So that's what my first book is about, really getting people to look at all ages, because even women that are older, they can see it and they can start to reverse some of the things that they've done. Like, one of the biggest thing I've done from reading this book is really apologize and ask the people that I've hurt to forgive me because of what I did. And all because it was what I learned. It was learned behavior. So that's what that book is about. And then my second book actually was written before my first book. I was planning on publishing it. I had to edit it twice. I guess there was a fear that I wasn't going to be successful at it. So I didn't do it. But as soon as my sister took her life, it was just something God said, you know what, you need to get this book. And he made it possible for everything to happen just really smoothly. And the second book is called Triangulation, How to Break Free from Toxic Relationships. That one came out in April. It was published in April, and it's about how toxic relationships, or how we allow toxic relationships to prevent us from doing what we were placed on this earth to do. It's a disruption, and it comes from the dysfunctional model of behavior, the drama triangle. Now, how this is Christian based is because, like I said to you before, a lot of people don't understand where these interruptions, these disruption, this chaos, they don't understand where it's coming from. But the enemy has put this in place to prevent you from doing what you want to do, because people fall within this three positions within this inverted triangle, the drama triangle. When they fall into that, they get pulled into that either consciously or unconsciously. And before you know it, their energy is all zapped. They feel worthless because they've been pulled in something that they didn't expect to be pulled in, and they surely didn't expect the outcome to be what it was. And triangulation is when two people are in the middle of the drama triangle and they pull you in, like I said, whether knowingly or unknowingly, and before you know it, you're the victim. I mean, you're the bad guy. And so we go through that all the time, at work, at home, to in cars, in the grocery store, wherever we are. Two people can be doing something and somebody's got to put their 2 cents in. Stay out of it. Stay out of it, because then you're going to be the one that's going to be at the short end of the stick, and then you're miserable. This book is to help you to break free from the toxic relationships, and it gives you all the tools and all the information, the perspective you need to make sure that you identify. It's funny because every time someone reads this book and they're like, oh my God, I get it now. And I can go back and I can see how I allowed this to happen, or how this happened to me. And here's the key, what I just said, I can see how I allowed it, not that someone did something to you. Because when you blame other people for doing stuff to you or cause you to be in the situation that you're in, even your parents from your past, from your childhood, then you're doing nothing but standing right smack dab in the middle or within a position in the drama triangle. And that's the victim.
It's so interesting because I share most of that perspective, but I do think like some point it's okay to admit that people have harmed us and that things were done to us, but they were done for us.
Exactly.
They
That's
were,
good.
yeah, so it's like it's because there are things that are done to us, right? And I'm like, recognize that, and that's okay. I think that's also God. God's in those moments too,
Right.
done for our greater good. It's like, look at all the things that may have happened to you, right? But how
Right.
it for you to step into your purpose, to turn your pain into purpose. So,
Absolutely. And one of the things I talk about in my books, and it might be in both of them because it's so important, what you just mentioned between the two and the four, is when you understand that it's for you, after you do the work. You may do the work and realize it was done to you. Now, what do I do? But when you hold on to that to me, the woe is me, you are in the victim position. And I talk about the difference between in the books about the difference between victim and victimhood. Because in victimhood, we want to stay right there. It just doesn't hurt bad enough to do something about it. Oh, we've grown so accustomed to it that we wear that pain like a badge of honor. And when we do that, we don't give ourselves permission to grow and realize what was done for us. Because whatever happens in our lives, as long as we understand it's for us, we have a better picture of how it positions us to do what we're placed on this earth to do, to help somebody else, because somebody else is going through something that you went through, and they need to have someone to help them have the courage to do and the understanding to get through to do what they need to do. And that's where we pass it forward, pay
well,
it
not,
forward.
yeah, and that's why I love this podcast and so many other podcasts, that share stories and share their journeys, but then also their pain to purpose. Like I see a lot of podcasts kind of getting stuck in the pain, and you hear
Mm,
a lot of victim mentality in just, how they're sharing the story and they're still in it, they're still in the
yeah,
doesn't
it's
mean
victimhood.
but it's
Victimhood.
definitely they're in that victimhood and not, stepping more into the purpose side of it and understanding that it was done for them. And so I love that. But your books, I love the theme around disruption, and you talk about, like being young, and being a victim of whatever, whatever traumas that you dealt with, not you personally, but just, your
Right.
in your books, and I find that when people don't heal those traumas, they are the age at which those traumas happened. And I think I heard, like Mel Robbins and some other folks saying, oh, people are, in the age range of, 5 and 8 years old, like all people are that age. And I actually disagree with that. I think that when you have grown past that or healed through that, like you're no longer the age at which your trauma happened, and I think trauma happens at different ages for different people. It's not
Oh,
just
yeah.
5 and 8.
Oh,
Sometimes
no.
there's people that are stuck in this mentality of a 14-year-old because that is where their trauma happened and they hadn't healed from it.
Right.
That's actually what I believe. But I love that your books give people a roadmap to disrupt that, and it's really energetically, like we talked about earlier, The Body Keeps the Score, which is
Yeah.
incredible book, by the way. If anyone hasn't read it, please go read it. But I also think we are energetically, that energy is still in us until
Hmm.
that energy and we heal that energy, because energetically we still remember.
Well, it's interesting because, and this is relating to the journaling, the dialogical journaling. I mentioned the book, Inner Bonding by Margaret Paul. I started reading that book in 1999 before I even came to Atlanta, Georgia. And here's the really important part of this about that age. 14 years later, in 2015, so it's 60, anyway, 2014, after doing the inner bonding work, the journaling work, my inner child and I became one.
Hmm. Hmm.
We became one. And now there is no problem setting boundaries,
Yeah.
none. Because whenever I get to a situation that I can feel that this isn't right for me. I can't. I immediately go and I do my dialogical and we have a conversation and
Energetically.
sure.
And that's
Yes.
what I'm talking about. Energetically, you have healed it. So you can
Yes.
recognize it and then you
Yes.
do what you need to do. Like,
Done.
that's why I completely disagree with that statement when they're like, people are all adults are the ages between 5 and 8. I'm like, no, they're not. You know,
Mm.
I completely disagree with that. Like, I don't think that we're still showing up like that in situations. Like, I think if you haven't addressed it, then absolutely,
Right.
but
Right.
because we carry all of our experiences with us, in every situation, and so if you have grown past that, then you're carrying that growth with you. Now, it doesn't mean you're not perfect. I mean, no one's perfect. Like,
Right.
gonna have moments like I'm still healing. We're gonna be on this healing journey forever,
Journey
but
forever. It's a
so
beautiful
it
thing. We get to
is,
do
isn't
it.
my God, it's so beautiful. And I'm like, and I think that's where I want people to be so much more at peace with it, that
Yes.
it is a journey and it's an experience that we get to have this beautiful human experience that we get to have, but we're all spiritual beings,
Yeah.
So like just enjoy that journey, for whatever that looks like for you.
Right. And here's the thing about it, though. Here's a caveat. As we go through this healing journey, and this is why it's so important to understand the drama triangle, is because there are other people who have not. And those are the people who will be positioned within the drama triangle. One of the three positions, either the victim, the rescuer, or the persecutor. And we don't have to, when you read this book, you can identify each position within that model and you'll know because the book tells you what to do about it. It gives you the examples of when you didn't do it right, when you got caught up in it. And I take that same situation, which is actually a personal situation for me, and I give them an opportunity to work through it based on what they've learned from the drama triangle and the productive triangle.
I love that you mentioned that because we will. And that's where the growth happens or not. Like, and this is where I work with clients. I'm like, you got to forgive yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you do have a moment that you have a setback because maybe someone came and, they were dumping on you and, projecting onto you, like
Yes.
and you had a weak moment, like that's okay. You forgive yourself and you move forward, but now you know how to recover faster and you
Yep.
know how to move forward faster.
Yep.
And so I love that. I can't wait to read this book that
Oh,
you're
no.
I'm gonna buy it.
Okay, good, good, good.
Well, oh my goodness. Well, tell me this because you are taking care of so many clients and, showing up for others and really, sharing your pain to purpose in so many different ways. How do you take care of yourself? How do you fuel yourself back up to do the work?
The work is fuel for me. I love it. I'm working all the time trying to help people, not trying, helping people to identify different areas where boundaries are needed. So it's interesting because I prayed to God once. I'm like, God, how come I don't have friends? Friends, people have tons and tons of friends. And then I realized he explained to me that because every time you talk to somebody, they're coming to you and they're complaining about something and you want to help them work through it. And after you do that, then if they don't do it, they still want to come back and they want to complain about the same thing. I'm like, I don't do that. One of my models is I'm not here to wallow in your misery with you. I'm here to escort you out of it. So it's just innate in me to be able to help people through things all the time, not as a rescuer, because I've been a rescuer in that drama triangle, but to really step back and say, okay, how can I help this person? Does this person want to be helped, or does this person really want to just complain? Are they uncomfortably? You said people get uncomfortable. They get comfortably uncomfortable in the situation they're in, and they don't want to do the work to get out of it because it takes work, and you know that. So I
We
just
can't do it for them. And that's the
yeah,
thing, we cannot do it for them.
we
Like
can't do it for
I
them.
used to in my 20s, very selfishly think that I could, help people and help them do the work and oh, I just want to, it was very selfish because you can only do the work with yourself and whoever is your higher power, whatever your belief.
Right.
is. Like that is the only, that's it. There's no one else that can do the work, you know? And
No.
so like I say it selfishly because I'm like, yes, I wanted to help, but I'm like, it was more out of like me thinking that that was my job, and it's God's job.
Well, that's interesting because that's one of the things about rescuers, why they rescue, because they're thinking about themselves. And they also have a feeling that that person that they're doing it for isn't capable of doing it. And we
That's
disempower them when we do that.
exactly. I always
Yeah.
say, like, I use the analogy of like, when someone's in the foxhole, it's
Mhm.
like, and they're in that kind of victim mentality, like you
Yeah,
can't get in it with them.
that's right.
Be
They
right
want to pull you
there
in,
for them. You can be there for them outside of it, but you can't get in with them. Like they have to work their way out.
even if they want to pull you in.
Yes. And most times
That's
they do.
the
Yeah.
boundary you have to set with them.
Outside of the work, like how do you fuel yourself back up? Like, do you take time to yourself?
Oh, yeah.
When,
Self-care. I go to the gym, I go swimming, I go in my prayer closet, I journal all the time. I crochet. I have a crochet business that I do. Just but really journaling creates a lot of content for me. So and I and my husband too, he's like, well, he's trying to say, okay, can I have some time? And I'm like, I have to work boundaries around the time that I give him. But then I have to realize it's not taking away. So I do a lot with time compartmentalizing to make sure that I have the right amount of time to do everything I need to do. But self care is key because, when you're helping other people, helping them work through things, it takes a lot of energy and you have to replenish that energy. So, walks, crochet, making jewelry, all those, and coloring books just give me peace and that refuels me.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I love that you have a prayer closet. That is so cool.
Oh, God, I love this player closet. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Tell me, because you mentioned a little bit, like what's next for you? And also, are you taking on any clients, any new clients?
hmm Yes, as a matter of fact, some people say, "Are you taking?" Yes, I'm taking on more
Yeah,
clients
yeah,
because
perfect.
I will find time. I just, then that's how you figure out how to best use your time. But and I do complimentary sessions, of course, discovery sessions to see where they are and what type of program might be best for them to work with me.
Perfect. Well, I'll be sure to put all your information in the description below. But thank you so much for coming on Blessing Sunday Soul Day. This was such a beautiful, energetic exchange. I love talking to you. I would love to have you on again. There's so many topics that we talked about today that I'm like, we need to do another episode.
Yes, yes, yes.
Love to have you
Let's do
on
it.
again. But thank you so much, Pamela. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
And everyone, as always, have an amazing Sunday. Blessings to you all.